Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and for hitting the like button. Today we have 5 great stories. The first story is called Pick One. The company I had been working for in a role of a supervisor had gone under. The old owner retired and gave the business to his son. Well, this guy decided to nickel and dime everything. My team consisted of me, 4 other engineers and 5 support staff. The engineers and I had it written in our contracts that we got a $75 daily lunch allowance. The most we ever spent was maybe $150, but that included lunch for the support staff. Well, my assistant had a routine where she would come in the office with coffee for everyone from a cheap coffee shop near the office. I think it was $1 a cup for really good coffee. Then, before lunch, she would take the office's lunch orders and go pick them up. This was done on a petty cash system. Buy the stuff, take your money, leave a receipt. Well, the new owner had been going over it. He saw the daily coffee order and decided to come down to the office to throw a huge fit about the $15 in coffee every day and the lunch. We were told to pick one, have lunch or coffee. He won't have us take advantage of the company like that anymore. He was not so nice with his choice of words. Well, at this time I knew I was on my way out. I had been harassed and I knew they were getting ready to get rid of me. They eventually did, but it cost them big time. I decided that if he is going to treat us like that, we might as well do what our contract state. So instead of the coffee order and a small lunch for everyone, we just had our lunch. But no more cheap lunch. We made sure to spend exactly $400, every last penny the contract said we could. The cheap $6 lunches turned into massive lunches with lobster, steaks and rolls, with lots of leftovers for the support staff to take home with them. I was only there for another 2 months, but I'll tell you, those $400 lunches were super tasty. The next story is called He Wants to Micromanage. This happened recently. I work for an entity that deals with the general public. We use an application internally but allow the general public to view the results on an external website. The way it works is the vendor runs a script that dumps our local database each night and uploads it to their server to be viewed on the hosted website. The issue is their software is fully implemented. If their upload times out and only a partial file is uploaded, which happens very frequently, the website will go down and display a message that it is down for maintenance. We then have to run the uploader manually, which can take several hours to complete, which means the site is down that whole time. Being in IT and trying to be proactive, I found a free service that would monitor the site for specific changes and send an email when the change was detected. It worked great. The site went down, I received an email and could start the process to get it back up ASAP. This worked well for several years. One day I get a call from another department that the site was offline before the monitor caught it, so I ran the utility to bring it back up. The department head had a fit. He said only he could notify IT that the site was down, and we were to do nothing until we explicitly heard from him to run the update utility. Fine, okay. His department had the contract for the app and it belonged to them. I cancelled the monitor service. I no longer restart the app when it fails, but wait to hear from the department head. When a user contacts me to let me know the site is down, I tell them they have to call the department head and let him know, as I am forbidden to help them. The site now can be down for most of the day before anyone notices it. The general public has started complaining that the site is always down, which has made it all the way to the top. The department head has to deal with complaints from not only the general public and our own internal employees, but the top brass as well. Apparently, they are now looking for a new service provider, as the vendor has been unable to fix the issue for several years. I had already told them that, but they did not want to listen, as I was able to keep the site up the majority of the time, so no one was complaining about it. The automatic update ran at 3 AM. I would get a notification when it failed around 4:30, so I would manually run the utility and have the site back up before the start of the business day. I sleep much better now. The third story is called Racist Got What She Deserved. I live in a German-speaking country and we are known to be very strict about closing times and time limits at our government offices. I happened to witness some fine malicious compliance in one of these offices. I work as some sort of engineer and went to an office which is dealing with formal requests regarding government-issued assignments. If you want to get such an assignment, you have to bring in paperwork in person up to a specific date. Because of the form and many things that happen in my industry, it is quite common to bring in the paperwork on the last day possible. It was close to closing time, and I was waiting for someone when a woman entered the room, obviously in a rush, heading to the counter where paperwork has to be put in. The counter was empty at the time. While she rushes across the waiting area, her paperwork slides out of her arms and falls to the ground, spreading all over. As she is trying to put it all together, a man who looked Middle Eastern tried to help her. But when he touched her, she let out a shriek and told him to get back where he belongs and to not touch her paperwork. This was obviously a racist remark, telling him to get to his country of origin, a quite common statement here. Without a word, he gets up and behind the counter the woman was heading for. When she finally finished picking up her papers, she heads to the counter, realizing that he isn't there. Just as she reaches him, he puts up a sign saying close and points to the clock which had just reached closing time. Her face went blank as she stammered to please make an exception, but she surely knew from the beginning this was a pointless request. If she had let him help her, I'm sure she would have been able to put in the paperwork. I can just make an assumption that she either wasn't able to put in the paperwork at all or at least had to come in again the next day. Surely not what her boss was expecting. The next story is called "You Are Not Allowed to Go in There Unsupervised." This happened back when I was working for a Japanese company. I was working in the stores that supplied a manufacturing line. We had pigs that told us the item and the number that were to be sent to the line. I worked split shifts, so 6 AM till 2 PM one week, 2 PM till 10 PM the next, and 10 PM till 6 AM the following. On this occasion, my manager was sick for the day, 6 AM, and the office was empty. No biggie, as the night shift manager had printed the labels, so I went in and grabbed them and got to work. About an hour later, I got called over the tannoy to report to the office and came face to face with a manager I had never seen before. There was a lot of shouting. It ended up with me somehow getting put on a final warning for being in the office unsupervised, regardless that it was a store's office. There was nothing confidential in there and no money or anything to go missing unless it was personal. But with no union in that place and me being young, I just accepted it. A few weeks later, on the night shift, our manager had been snowed in at home and couldn't make it in. He rang my coworker and told us to grab labels out of the office and carry on. I think you can see where this is going. I had a great night just putting stock away and no pick done. 6 AM rolls around and the day shift manager rolls up and instantly notices something is wrong. Where's the pick? Couldn't do it, no one in the office during nighttime, and I am not allowed to go in there unsupervised. Again, I got shouted at. But this time I managed to get a hold of my personnel file and showed him my warning for being in that office. Nothing much else came from it, but at least we had one nice quiet night. The last story is called "Pick Up the Pace." This happened several months ago. I work as a fabricator welding frames together that are installed into modified storage units to turn them into different types of facilities for the military. I usually pace myself, based not only on the amount of work I have that day, but I also make sure I have something to occupy myself with the next day too. So I was taking my time this night and then encountered a critical failure in my machine towards the end of the night. Because of this, I was unable to finish the frame. The next day rolls around and I get in trouble for not finishing the frame. Even though they didn't need it that day, which I knew the night before, and it's part of the reason why I took my time. I asked him what I can work on that day, and the day soup just says frames. I look at the rack and I see that it is completely full, which means that there is no reason for me to make any frames that day. The daytime supervisor doesn't care and was complaining to other people about how slow I was working. My actual supervisor comes over and tells me the day sub is considering booting me from the department. I explain to him that I work slowly because of how little work they actually give me to do. He tells me to write down any extra stuff I produced that day to try and get on the day sub's good side again. Anyway, the list of stuff comes to me on what they ask of me to do that day. Usually they only ask for one set of frames. They asked for 2 sets instead. The rack was still full though, so not a single frame needed to be made. What likely happened was the day sub complained to the guy who made the list about my productivity levels. And so he upped the numbers without even checking what needed to be made. So what do? I not only make 2 sets of frames, but I also almost finished a third. By the way, did I mention how big these frames are? They are about 18 feet long. They get in the way really easily. So I ran into a problem. Where can I possibly put these things? One of the units, obviously. Now, most of the units we work on don't have any sides to them at that stage. But there was one that was special. It did have sides. So I slid them into that one to make life as miserable as possible for the day sub the next day. The next day comes around. They are livid. But they can't do anything, because the day before they were complaining about my lack of productivity. It took them an hour to get the frames out of that unit. It was such an inconvenience that it drew the attention of the manager, the day supervisor's boss. And he shooed him out, not me. He asked me why I did what I did, and I say I was told to pick up the pace and the list said to make 2 frames. So I surpassed your expectations and did 3 instead. You should have properly communicated to me what you wanted. So they scrapped the list and are now forced to communicate more directly with us. And now it's your time to shine. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories? I hope you enjoyed today's video. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.